Hi, Y members. It's Aaron from the YMCA of Southern Maine, one of the trainers and a nutrition coach, and I'm coming to you today to talk a little bit about carbohydrates. Try to give you a little bit of good information that you might be able to use and help you understand a little bit. Carbohydrates, what do we use them for? Essentially, basic form is energy. We use them for fuel for our brain, for our central nervous system, for working muscles. We also use them to blunt stress response from cortisol, and we use them to essentially help stop the body from using our protein sources like our muscles as fuel. So let's talk about it a little bit. Carbs. We have three basic forms. You have your monosaccharides, your disaccharides, and your polysaccharides. Monosaccharides are 1-unit sugars. Disaccharides are 2-unit sugars. Polysaccharides are 3 or more units. The concern is how quick do we use these. Monosaccharides and disaccharides are fast absorbing. They are almost ready made for use, and our body converts them and can put them in the bloodstream really fast. Polysaccharides, they have to go through a breakdown process, and it takes longer. So those are energy sources that will take a little bit more time. They don't spike energy quite as fast, but still the digestion and usage happens reasonably quickly. So you've all heard the whole simple versus complex. Really, simple carbs are those 1 or 2-unit sugars. They come from fruit, milk sources, some vegetables. You find them in table sugar and syrup and candy and soda, those types of things. Your complex carbs are the polysaccharides, those that have more than 2 units. Those are typically coming from your starchy foods, beans, peas, lentils, nuts, potatoes, whole grains, things like that, that require more breakdown. How does it work? You put the food in your mouth, you start to chew it, you immediately start to break down carbs in your mouth. You have amylase enzymes in your saliva that start to break down that carbohydrate source, and 20% of those carbs can actually get processed right there in your mouth. We eat the food, it goes down through the digestion process and into our small intestines, where it's absorbed as either glucose, fructose, or lactose. These are all your single unit monosaccharides that get used in the bloodstream. This stuff moves around the bloodstream with insulin and immediately can get put to use for energy, for working muscles, to fuel the brain, to fuel the central nervous system, all those things. If there's not a call for what you've taken in, the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to store it as glycogen, which is a complex carbohydrate. We store this in our liver or our skeletal muscle, and we keep those glycogen molecules for instances where we need to work quickly. We don't have a ready-made fuel source that we're putting in our mouth, so we can break those things down really quick, release them into the bloodstream, and use them for energy. So when we tap out our stores, or top out our stores of glycogen, we then start to put that sugar into storage, because it's all floating around in our bloodstream. It can't stay there. High levels of blood sugar over a long period of time are destructive, and so we store it as fat. So you can start to see how if you're eating too much carbohydrate, you're going to have a problem. You're going to wind up storing it as fat. So for people that are exercising and active on a regular basis, you use what's in your bloodstream first. You get it put to use to help your working body. And then from there, you are replenishing supplies of glycogen that you've used in previous workouts, previous activities. So if you're regularly active and using, an appropriate amount of carbohydrates, you're going to continue to just burn these carbs as energy, and they're not going to get stored. It's when you're excessively eating them that you're going to have a problem. When you start to think about carb sources and where's your carbs coming from, there's been a whole discussion. I'm sure you've all heard it about good and bad carbs. Oh, what's a good carb? What's a bad carb? What should I avoid? Well, here's the reality. A carb is a carb. You can fuel your workout on table sugar. You can fuel your workout on fruit. You can fuel your workout on any carb source that there is. The difference really is, how is that food that you're taking in going to benefit you in the long term, other than quick energy for your workout or your activity? So when you're talking about things like candy and soda and syrups and sugar, there's absolutely no benefit other than that quick energy release to those things. So when you are taking those things in, you are not doing anything else to help your body. If you're eating vegetables and fruit and other good micronutrient dense foods, you're going to have those nutrients to go to other body processes that are necessary for recovery and healthy living. So if you can, you should always gravitate towards those sources of fuel, good natural sources that, like superfoods, are full of vitamins and minerals and good things that you need to run your body. So good versus bad, there's really no good versus bad. It's what source are you using, and how can it benefit you other than the energy that you are immediately requesting from it? That's really the discussion. What about insulin? How does insulin work? I know we all have heard a lot about that. Insulin is a hormone that allows us to take glucose into the cell. When you eat a carbohydrate source and your blood sugar goes up, your pancreas secretes insulin. When you secrete the insulin gets put to use to help you use these sources of energy that you've given the body. If you take in foods like complex carbohydrates that are healthy, from starchy foods, they tend to be more low glycemic, meaning they don't spike your insulin super fast. The insulin response is less from those foods, and so you don't get as much circulating insulin in your bloodstream. So you're able to more appropriately utilize it in the way that sort of nature intended us to utilize it. If we're eating things like processed candy and sugar and things like that, we're putting in lots and lots and lots of simple energy sources into our body all at once. Our body is not really designed to do that or utilize that. So the insulin goes up really, really fast. And what happens is then that insulin utilizes all that sugar in the bloodstream really fast. What isn't utilized for the usage of body functions or storage as glycogen, it gets immediately transferred into our fat cells, and then it's gone. But the insulin that we dumped into our system really fast is still hanging out. It doesn't go away so fast. So you wind up with a scenario where your blood sugar goes really high, your insulin goes really high, your blood sugar drops really fast because of the big insulin response. Now you have low blood sugar and you have all kinds of insulin that's still hanging out in your bloodstream that continues to try to squeeze more and more glucose out of your blood. Now you get tired. Now you can get anxious. You can feel really bad, symptoms of hypoglycemia. I know probably all of us have felt that in our lives at times. And so then, oh man, I got to eat something. I just don't feel good. I'm lightheaded. I feel really yucky. So we go back for more. We take in more sugar, and then the same thing happens. So we take in that big sugar source, simple sugars dump into our bloodstream, insulin spikes again. We immediately feel better, but then all of a sudden, man, our sugars bottom out and we feel bad again. So that's why we would encourage you to try and utilize complex sources of carbohydrates to blunt that insulin response and to keep things more even for you. And the only other thing to really talk about is, how much. Well, that's different for everybody. Again, like protein, it's variable based on your workouts, your metabolic needs. It's a little bit of trial and error, but a few things to think about. Make sure that you're taking in a little bit of some carbohydrate before your workout, ideally a couple hours before to get them digested into your bloodstream. That gives you good energy and tops off your glycogen stores for your workout so you can work hard. Within 30 minutes after your workout, take in some carbs and some protein. Like 30 grams of carbs after your workout can really do wonders. Firstly, it stops the stress response in your body, which comes from cortisol. The stress response is doing everything that it can to fuel your brain and your body. And one of the things that it will do if it runs out of glucose, it's going to start catabolizing your muscles, breaking them down for energy. And that's really what we don't want to have happen. We spend the time in the gym or, doing our workouts and activities to build muscle, not to lose it. So take in some carbs after your workout. That will help to blunt that response and help to initiate good recovery. And then from there, it's a little bit of, a personal thing, based on your body and your activity and how things work for you. If you get your protein right and you're eating an appropriate amount of fats, the carbs are going to sort of settle themselves out. And if you're eating more complex carbs versus simple, then you're going to be getting plenty of fiber. You're not going to be typically overeating them. And if you're struggling, certainly reach out. I'm happy to answer questions. I also do nutrition coaching for the Y. My email address is agould, AGOULD, at YMCA of Southern Maine.org. You can certainly send me an email. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And, I hope this is informative for you. I hope it helps educate you and just help you understand that carbs aren't the enemy. Carbs are your friend. But you have to know a little bit about how to use them and what they're used for in order to use them to your advantage. So anyway, I hope this was useful for you. I hope that you all are doing well, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.